So we are merely days away from the biggest event possibly of 2025, at least thus far, with the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. Now, we of course got our little glimpse of the Nintendo Switch 2 back in January, but that was just kind of an appetizer. That was just more so a morsel of information and, potentially trying to get people excited for this system. A bit of a teaser. More questions than answers were really added to the speculation of the system, but we do know it exists. We do know it's a real thing. We do know there's a Mario Kart game for it. There's a weird kind of mouse thing. There's a mysterious button that nobody knows about, which leads to a lot of questions with this. And we actually have more questions now because, of course, we recently had a Nintendo Direct presentation for the Nintendo Switch 1. Now, I wasn't a huge fan of this presentation, aside from Metroid Prime 4 and a couple other games. Really didn't interest me all that much. But one thing that raised a lot of questions, and people still have a lot of questions, is Nintendo's take on game sharing. And within the information of this, there is some speculation that this will actually involve the Nintendo Switch 2 as well. And that comes from Nintendo's own words themselves. And many people are running in an interesting direction with it. I kind of want to talk about what people are saying, talk about my thoughts on it as well, and then, of course, hear what you guys got to say about it. So if you like these types of videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button and be sure to turn on notifications because, there's going to be a lot of Switch 2 crap coming up, man. Like, what do you want me to say here? So virtual game cards. We got this weird, elongated explanation of virtual game cards and how you can essentially turn your digital game into what the system would recognize as kind of a physical game and then exchange it between systems without having to log into the internet. Because right now, if your Nintendo Switch, like my Nintendo Switch OLED is my secondary Nintendo Switch, so it's kind of a pain in the ass. Like I have to have an internet connection to make sure that I can play these games on this system. Even if I bought the game on the system digitally, like right now I bought Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition digitally on my Nintendo Switch OLED. Although it is registered to that system, it still has to check online every time I boot it up to make sure that I'm able to play the game. So this was designed in mind of those people that have multiple Nintendo Switch systems to where you don't have to have that online check in order to play the game that you are playing on the system. This also extends into allowing people on your family membership plan to essentially rent a game from you. I'm not sure if it ever really clarified whether or not you lose access to that game if you rent it out to someone. It is a 2-week rental. So a lot of these games, put the pipes to them, beat the brakes off of them, be like, yo, beat this game, bro, and then give it back to me, or I'm taking it back in 2 weeks or whatnot. But I actually think that's kind of cool because if I had people on my family plan, you can only transfer this locally. But if I had people on my family plan, I'd be charging you for those rentals. I would be Blockbuster 2025. Oh, you want to rent this game for 2 weeks? $10. That's better than buying the game for $60. At least you're being able to try it out. I would start my own little Blockbuster empire. But you scroll down here, they try to make this seem like it's the easiest thing in the world. You can now move your games between the systems. Here's the family. Dad is letting mom and his daughter and his son play a game. That's a good dad. But once we get into the nitty-gritty, the description down here, this is where the Switch 2 plays a role. And if you look at the second asterisk, compatible systems must be linked to a Nintendo account to use virtual game cards. Okay, no big deal. Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive games and Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games can only be loaded from a Nintendo Switch 2 system. To move virtual game cards between two systems, you must pair the systems via local wireless and an internet connection, but only when pairing systems for the first time. Up to 2 systems total can be linked to your per Nintendo account. Whatever. What the hell is this? Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games, because this is obviously something different than a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive game. This is a Nintendo Switch 2 edition game. Now, if this was a third-party game or a first-party game or an indie game, those are going to be Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive games, all because it's saying it's exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2, meaning that you cannot play this on your previous system on your Nintendo Switch 1. It has to be the Nintendo Switch 2 game on the Nintendo Switch 2, like we've had with every other system. But a Nintendo Switch 2 edition game definitely raises some eyebrows, definitely raises some questions with this, because what are they saying with that? What does that actually mean? Now, a lot of people are running with the thought process that this indeed means, hey, guess what, pal? Your Switch 1 games are going to, when you put them on the Switch 2, they're going to be enhanced. They're going to be Switch 2 edition games, and they're going to utilize the extra power of the system, the upscaling technology that we know is within the system, and that is how this is going to work. And I mean, maybe that's something. Maybe that is, that's what I would like to think, because that would be very pro-consumer. I would love to be able to play Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity and actually beat it, because that frame rate was disgusting. And, I'm fine with 30 frames per second. I'm not a frame rate whore, but that frame rate in that game was disgusting. And if I could have something to enhance that frame rate so that I could play the game and actually enjoy the game and not go down to like 20 frames per second and even less at points and times within the game, I would thoroughly enjoy that. So I'm hopeful that that is what that is for, but I'm also not 100% sold on that. I'm not 100% sold on that, because I don't understand what the Nintendo Switch 2 edition means. Would that mean that you're taking a prior existing game and then making a Nintendo Switch 2 edition for that? Because this could be something, although your system is backwards compatible with the Nintendo Switch 1 library, this could be something where they're taking a Nintendo Switch 1 game and making a Nintendo Switch 2 edition of that game. And then that version of the game with the enhanced bells and whistles and stuff like that would then run only on the Nintendo Switch 2. Of course, there is that long-standing rumor that I think it was 2 or 3 years ago at Games Developer Conference, there was a backroom showcase for the Nintendo Switch 2 in terms of what they were expecting with power. And there were some interesting titles there. Final Fantasy VII, the Matrix demo, the Matrix Reloaded demo, which is still the most impressive piece of technology that we've seen. But there was also something with Breath of the Wild at 4K 60 frames per second. And I'm not 100% sure that you're not going to see Breath of the Wild Enhanced Edition, Breath of the Wild Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, that does have 4K 60 frames per second, or a higher frame rate and a higher resolution, and also includes all of the DLC that they released all in one bundle, packaged as a Nintendo Switch 2 edition of a Nintendo Switch 1 game. I'm just trying to spitball some different theories, some different ideas out there, because I feel like you have to have like a system of checks and balances. I'm not going to hype beast up something and be like, yeah, your Switch 1 games are now going to be Switch 2 edition games, and they're just going to automatically run and look so much better with no additional cost to you. That could be the case. Or there could be an upgrade path. Or there could be a Nintendo Switch 2 edition of previously released games on the Nintendo Switch 1 as well. Like, it just kind of makes sense from a business perspective. And I'm not even saying you need to do full price re-releases of these things. Maybe if you did it for like $40 or something, $60, because obviously a lot of Switch 2 games are also going to be $70, maybe $50 for it. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing different ideas out there, because I'm not 100% sold that like that is what this is going to be, that your games are going to be automatically enhanced. Because why would the system, if that's the case, would the system really make a new ID just for the Nintendo Switch 1 game that you are playing on the Nintendo Switch 2? Because that doesn't make a lot of sense from a perspective of the ecosystem of the system. You know what I'm saying? You're just playing a backwards compatible game. It's not like Nintendo DS games had 3DS versions. So I'm just not 100% sold on that idea. Of course, the Switch 2 does have additional features. It does have additional buttons. What is that mystery C button? Could that be a reason as to why it pairs up with the Nintendo Switch 2 edition? There's a lot of speculation. And I think speculation is fun, but that's what it is. It's speculation. I wouldn't speak in absolutes with something like this because I don't think it's going to actually be what a lot of people are thinking it's going to be. But we will find out in a matter of a few days. So let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think this is? A Nintendo Switch 2 edition game. What does that mean? What is that signifying? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit the bell notification as well so you're not missing out on any uploads. Things are about to get crazy. It's getting kind of hectic. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.